Well. College football is officially back. Top 10 matchup, Clemson versus LSU in Death Valley, Clemson, South Carolina, 7:30 p.m. this Saturday. I'm excited about it. I hope you guys are excited about it. Me and Jordan are here tonight in the All-In Show to break down the matchup and give you our score prediction for the game. All of that and more coming up in tonight's episode. But before we get into tonight's show, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We do this weekly live video every single week. We also do a post-game live video immediately following every single Clemson game during the season. I hope you will hang out with us and make us your one-stop shop for all things Clemson football. A couple things before we start the show tonight. Hit that like button while you're in here on these live videos. It really helps us out. Also, consider becoming a channel member. Yes, that's right. We have channel memberships now. If you want some access to some exclusive content throughout the season that everybody else doesn't get to see, consider becoming a channel member. Any of the tiers will get you that, and it helps support the show on a monthly basis and help support what me and Jordan do here on the channel. And then also we have the super chat feature available for you guys. We get a lot of comments in these comment section. We try to get to as many as we can. We can't get to all of them, but if you want to ensure that your comment and or question gets read during this live episode, go ahead and hit that super chat for us, and we'll be sure to get to your comment or question. And with that said, and without further ado, I'm going to bring on my co-host, Jordan Bowman. Jordan, it's game week, brother. We have waited. We have waded through the desert of the long offseason of college football, and it is officially here. Week 0's in the books. Week 1 is up ahead. We got some massive games, but none more massive than Clemson's Week 1 matchup with LSU in the Valley. I'm excited. I know you are. It's going to be a great episode tonight.
100%, man. It's good to be back. I mean, this has been a long time coming. It's been an arduous process. I mean, honestly, the offseason didn't feel like it took that long, but there's nothing like game week, man. It's good to be doing these pregame shows again. This is our 4th season. It's hard to believe, but we made it, man. And I'm excited to break it down. I mean, this is as big of a home matchup for Clemson that I can remember in about a decade. At least a home opener. Like, it doesn't get bigger than this. 2 top 10 teams. And LSU is going to present a lot of challenges for this football team to start off the gate. And it's one that I expect to be really, really exciting from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's always ever since we started doing this show and kind of started doing YouTube, me and you here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel, the off seasons don't seem nearly as long for us. I think because we're like so into it all off season and doing a weekly show and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of gives us a little bit of football here and there. But man, this week 1 matchup is going to be amazing. It's going to be a lot of fun to dive into it. And I for one am excited that college football has finally returned. And yeah, man, you mentioned season 4. This is season 4 of me and you breaking down Clemson football and being here on YouTube on this channel. So it's crazy that this is our 4th season doing this, but a lot of fun at the same time.
100%, man. And a reminder to everybody, we're actually simulcasting to the LSU channel. So any LSU fans that pop in, tune in, feel free to comment, give your thoughts on LSU, Clemson, the matchup, all of that. We welcome all of the conversations. So y'all make sure to pop on in if you are watching.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you guys pop in and let us know what you guys think about the game. What's your score prediction? What do you think LSU's edges are in the game? What gives you confidence that they may win the game? All that kind of stuff. But let's give a quick shout out to the comment section before we dive into the show tonight, Jordan. Isaac Smith is in here first. Appreciate you being in here, brother. Yes, game week is finally here. John Sarian's in here, one of our moderators, one of the OGs of the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you. Let's see. Colin Daniel is in here. Thank you for being in here. Arthur Moss, one of our channel members. Thank you so much for supporting the show on a monthly basis. We really do appreciate it. And thank you for being in here on the live show. Wet Sox is in here. Joe Long is in here. He says 31-24 Clemson. All right. I like it. I like it. Monkey is in here. He says 34-17 Clemson. So got Clemson winning by a little bit of a wider margin there. So thank you guys all for getting into the comment section already. As you guys know, the format of the All In Show is always the same. We go through our planned portion of the show, the topics that we are going to hit on, and then at the end of that, we turn it over to you guys, the live chat, the comment section, and we chop it up with you guys for as long as we possibly can, answer as many questions as you guys have. It's a lot of fun, so stick around to the end of the show for that. Don't forget the super chat if you want to ensure that your question or comment gets read. And with that said, Jordan, let's go ahead and dive into this this big week one matchup that we have. And obviously, coming out of fall camp, one of the things you always think about is how healthy is my team heading into week one, specifically for Clemson and LSU. When you have this magnitude of a matchup, two teams that are pretty evenly matched as far as the talent department. And you really got to pay attention to that injury report. Are there any key injuries or anything like that? And Clemson, pretty healthy heading into the season. Dabo Swinney did his interview today. We heard from him. We heard from Tom Allen. We heard from Garrett Riley. So both coordinators and the head coach we heard from today. And Dabo kind of updated the injury report. Walker Parks is obviously, he said he's back at practice. Somebody asked about the color of his jersey, just trying to dig into information and see if he's full contact. Dabo obviously didn't answer that. He just kind of dismissed that question with, he's good, he's back at practice. So what does that mean? We don't really know, right? Amari Adams and then Jay Haynes as well. Those two guys are definitely out for week one, still nursing those knee injuries from the offseason. And kind of getting back. They are practicing, but they are not full contact.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, we're going to continue to monitor the Walker Parks situation, because obviously that is the biggest name that we still kind of have questions about on whether or not he's going to be full go. It's I think the good thing for Clemson when you talk about this matchup and what the offensive line is going to need to do. I mean, I think you do feel good about the guys that the next couple of guys that could potentially slot in there for him if he wasn't able to go. Harris Sewell, Elijah Thurman, they feel really good about where those two are. I would expect either one of them to be able to play that position. Dabo actually said they might play anyway, even if Walker Parks plays. And that wouldn't surprise me either. So, I think, while it is something to monitor, you're definitely in a better spot than, maybe years past when you're questioning what's going to happen at right guard. But the team is fired up. I mean, game prep is underway, and I'm excited to see how it manifests on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the offensive line injury to Walker Parks, unfortunate for him. He's dealt with a lot of injuries over his career. He is an important part of that offensive line. But as you mentioned, we got guys ready to roll in, just chomping at the bit for reps. So Harris Sewell, and all those guys are ready to roll in. I think Matt Luke has got that offensive line in a really good position. and, probably one of the best situations we got right now to absorb an injury like we have with Walker Parks. Not that he won't play. He may suit up and play. We just don't know at this point. I'm going to go under the assumption that he's probably not going to go for LSU. But again, he could roll out there and be out there for the first series. We will have to wait until Saturday to see.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned Jay Haynes. Obviously, this was one that we didn't really expect to see at LSU. Maybe a couple weeks from now. He's made good progress, but I definitely don't see him playing. Of course, and I think you feel good about. They feel good at least in the running back depth, and obviously Adam Randall being the starter anyway. You'll expect for the run game to lean on him a good bit anyway. With mixes of David Izyamume and Gideon Davidson, I think you should be in an okay spot at running back heading into that game, regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. You got some quality depth there. I think we'll see how Gideon Davidson looks in game reps if he gets in there in the LSU game. I don't know that he will, but I think his role probably grows as the season goes on, as he gets more comfortable with pass protection and things like that. That's always the thing with those young running backs. A ton of talent, ready to run the rock, but running back position is not just running the football. So we'll see kind of how much he gets into the mix week one. But definitely Eazy-E has, gotten some rave reviews coming out of fall camp. So I'm excited to see him run. According to Garrett Riley, he is looking to inflict damage when he's running. He is running with a purpose. He is running through people and not necessarily around them. So that's always a fun type of running back to watch. And then, coupled with Adam Randall, I can't wait to see what he looks like as in a full game as RB1 for our Clemson Tigers.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you have to think like this is, Adam Randall. This is the culmination of a full off season of work. He's really transformed his. I mean, he was already really physically impressive, but now I think he's just built to play the position. And the reviews out of camp, throughout the spring and throughout fall camp have just been really glowing. They feel like I think they feel like they have something special with him. So, you still got to see it. We don't really know until we know. The limited time we saw in the Texas game, he had a big explosive run where he looked really, really good. But, is he going to be able to produce those types of plays on a regular basis in a game against a really talented LSU defensive line, especially? I don't know. That's the biggest I don't know besides punter that we have in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely questions at punter. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But that is the injury report for the Clemson Tigers. Flipping over to LSU and their injury report. I know there were reports earlier in camp about Garrett Nussmeier and the whole knee or whatever lower body injury that he sustained. I'm of the opinion he's 100% okay. I listened to their interviews, and it seems like according to Brian Kelly that he expects everyone to be available for the Clemson game. So sounds like they are in a good way in the injury department, maybe even a little better than Clemson is.
Yeah, they seem to be in good shape. Like all teams, they've dealt with nicks and bruises throughout throughout fall camp, but nothing serious. The Garrett Nussmeier thing was definitely overblown in terms of the severity of it, and he should be good to go. I expect him to be, if not 100%, 97. I don't know. You could round it up. I don't care. I expect him to be pretty close to full go when that game gets played. So I think LSU is going to do a lot to just make sure he stays in good shape throughout the week, and because he's ready to. I mean, they know what they're going to get from him. So absolutely. No chance. Don't risk, exposing him to another injury type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, for one, I'm glad he is okay and that it was nothing serious that happened to him in fall camp. This game would lose quite a bit of its luster if Garrett Nussmeier was not playing in it. So I, for one, am glad that all or both teams and majority of all players are ready to rock and roll for week one in this big showdown in the Valley, 7:30 p.m. It's going to be a raucous environment. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to watch it.
Definitely.
All right, guys, we'll be right back after a word from Mark Rogers.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
All right, guys, you heard that. Go check out the Amazon link. Anytime you're shopping on Amazon, whatever you're getting, whether it's for your game day, you're buying a new jersey, buying a new T-shirt, buying some LSU or Clemson memorabilia, use the Amazon link linked in our video below, linked in every video on the platform of the Voice of College Football. It doesn't cost you anything. It just helps us out. All right, Jordan, diving into this breakdown. We've talked about the injuries over the offseason. We talked about all of the storylines leading up to this game. Who's the real Death Valley? Who's the real Tigers? So on and so forth. Fan base is going back and forth. Brian Kelly's comments here and there. But it is game week, and it's time to talk about football, the actual game that will be played on the field. And we're going to start off with LSU's offense versus this Clemson defense. And man, oh man, is this going to be a matchup?
Yeah, absolutely. This is, I think, from the perspective of Clemson, this is the matchup. I mean, I think you are going to want to watch most closely. I think this is the side of the ball that I feel like Clemson has the most to prove. With everything we've talked about over the offseason, the supposed culture shift on defense with the addition of Tom Allen and other support staffers and kind of the overhaul of the overhaul of kind of how they did everything in terms of preparation, practice, strength and conditioning, everything they redid and retooled. And so, this is going to be the proof of concept, and it's coming really early. That's the thing that makes you nervous, because you're like, okay, man, we don't really have a whole lot of time to ease into this. No, we're playing an LSU offense that is extremely loaded, and they have the opportunity and the chance to really expose some weaknesses if you do have a lot of them. I think when you look at this matchup, and when you look at LSU's offense specifically, one thing that they specifically are going to want to do that they didn't do well last year. I'm interested to see, like, what is the plan as far as running the football. Yeah. I think any LSU fan would have a question about that too, because quite frankly, last year they weren't able to, and they didn't really try because of it. Garrett Nussmeier was fourth in the country in dropbacks last season. Now, keep in mind, LSU only played 13 games. They didn't, get that. They didn't play in a conference championship game. They didn't play in a playoff game. Yet Garrett Nussmeier was still fourth nationally in dropbacks. That's not great. They were in the 80s nationally in rushing attempts total. Just an offense that was a lot of passing. And I think one of the things that they didn't do well, despite passing a lot, was hit explosive plays. I think, some of that was, I think, LSU's offensive line underperformed in some respects, especially obviously running the football. And then receivers, they didn't have guys step up. I mean, I think one thing that they did this year in this offseason was they certainly infused this room with a lot of talent. They've had some guys that have already been in the program, Chris Hilton, Xavion Thomas, Aaron Anderson, but you bring in a guy like Nick Anderson from Oklahoma, you bring in Berrien Brown from Kentucky. They have kind of changed the outlook of this wide receiver room to where you have a lot of guys that can make explosive plays. They're not the most physically imposing group of receivers that you'll ever see. Not many of them are over 200 pounds, and not many of them are over like 6'1", but they can run. This is the fastest group of receivers in the country, I would say. So one thing that I want to see, I'm interested to see from this LSU offense is how do they go about, getting those guys the ball, but also how do they emphasize running the football? I think really the answer is going to come with their tight ends. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I think kind of went underrated about LSU and LSU in general in the recent years is they've had some really good tight ends. Obviously, Mason Taylor goes off to the NFL, but they feel really good about the two that they have. And Tradez Green, who is a basketball star, a basketball player who is a really freakish athlete, and Bauer Sharp, who they brought in from Oklahoma. I think you're going to see a lot of them in this game. I think you could see a lot of heavy sets in order to run the football, but also, they can take shot plays out of that because, Tradez Green is a guy that is, he runs faster than most tight ends you'll see. And he is definitely good for, they think he'll be good for an explosive play. He didn't get a ton of burn last year, but obviously they had a really good NFL tight end in front of him. So I guess my question is, like, do we think are they going to try to establish the run, or are they going to be more of an offense that, we've seen Clemson be at times like last year where, when they weren't running the football well, we'll substitute that with the screen game. They certainly have a lot of guys that can get a lot of yards after catch, the quick passing game. Are they going to do a lot of those types of things in order to substitute for the run game? Because they have some really talented backs, but the question is, can they block for them?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question, and I think that'll tell you the answer to that question when we find it out on Saturday. Will definitely tell you what they truly think of this retooled offensive line that they have. They had a good offensive line. A season ago, they weren't great at run blocking. They were much better at pass blocking than they were run blocking. But a lot of those guys got drafted, right? And they bring in basically a whole new offensive line. It's certainly going to be interesting to see if they try to establish the run early in this game. I think they do. I think LSU is going to come into this game and try to establish the running game against Clemson. For one reason, because Clemson, as much as we talk about this defensive line, as much as we talk about all the talent across Clemson's defense, they were flat out bad against the run last year. They gave up a lot of explosive runs. They gave up a lot of running yards against a lot of teams that they should not have given up a lot of running yards against. And I think LSU is going to test that run defense. They are going to test and see whether Tom Allen has come in and rectified schematically, because it can't be personnel-wise. We didn't really add too many pieces personally. We added a couple pieces through the transfer portal, but relatively, it's the same defense as last year, minus a couple pieces, specifically along the defensive line, minus Will Helt, right? He's the new face along that defensive line, but it's the same defensive line as last year, right? It's the same linebacker core as last year. So I think LSU is going to come in this game, and they will try to establish the run. And when you think about the magnitude of this game, and when you really think about, I talked about this on Ryan Cantor's show the other night, and the game within the game, right? I think this game, and this is not breaking news, like I said on his show, it comes down to the trenches. It's going to come down to who is more physical on the offense or on the line of scrimmage, and who is reestablishing the line of scrimmage in whatever direction, right? Does Clemson's defensive line reestablish the line of scrimmage in a negative way against LSU, or are they able to run block and get some room? They don't have to go and run for, 200, 250 yards against Clemson. They just have to have a formidable run game so that Garrett Nussmeier can sit back there, use play action, use these explosive wide receivers on the outside, and then suddenly it becomes a much harder and longer day for Clemson, right? So the game within the game, it really starts in the trenches, man. The biggest matchup for me heading into this game is Clemson's defensive line versus LSU's offensive line for a couple reasons. The run game, as you mentioned, but also the passing game. Clemson cannot sit back and let Garrett Nussmeier just sit back in the pocket and pick them apart with these explosive wide receivers, because if he has time and he's able to just sit back there and survey the defense, they're going to get open. And that's not to say our corners are bad. I feel really good about our corners. We have a question at safety, not because we don't have good guys at safety, but because RJ Mickens walked out the door, right? I don't think people understand how big of a loss that is. And we have a lot of guys that can fill in those spots, and we feel really good about the safety position. But if you put those guys out there on islands and just allow Garrett Nussmeier to survey the field, it's going to turn into a long day for Clemson, right? So it's really the line of scrimmage for me. Clemson has to stop the run, and they have to get after Garrett Nussmeier as a passer and force him to make decisions faster than he wants to. That's the recipe to slow down this LSU offense if you're Clemson.
Absolutely. And I mean, let's talk about LSU's offensive line, because I think ultimately I think on paper, the biggest, on paper mismatch in this game. LSU's offensive, they lost 3 guys to the NFL draft. One of them a first round tackle. The other one went 3rd round. Actually, 4 got drafted. When you consider Miles Frazier and I'm forgetting the other kid's name. So like they lost some guys. This is a new offensive line in a lot of respects. From what we've gathered through fall camp, 3 of those spots have been solidified. Left tackle, center, right guard, but you still have a question at left tackle. At left guard and right tackle.
Yep.
And so, I don't really know who's going to win those battles. And
if you heard, like, I don't mean to cut you off, but if you heard their press conference this week and Brian Kelly talking about it, one of the media members asked him about the offensive line, and he's like, we're probably going to rotate in and out. And I think they were kind of drawn back from that. They were like, what? We're going to rotate in and out. And he's like, yeah, it's okay to rotate in on the offensive line. So I think they don't really have it nailed down completely. Just hearing Brian Kelly talk about the offensive line, I think they got a couple guys and they're going to rotate them in and out, and they're probably going to see who's playing better and stick with that guy. Yeah.
I'm really, as much as, tackle is big, I think they do, I would guess we see Weston Davis at right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know that. I mean, but I think the really intriguing battle is between DJ Chester and Paul. I can't pronounce his last name. Paul Mubenga. DJ Chester was a guy that started for them last year at center, and he's since gotten his job taken by the Virginia Tech transfer Braylon Moore, and so they kind of moved him to guard, and he's kind of competing for that spot with Paul Mubenga, who got in a decent bit last year. But really, neither one of them, when we saw them, played particularly great. That's why they brought in Braylon Moore, because they needed help on the interior. So, my question is, especially when you consider what Clemson has at defensive tackle, can you win those matchups decisive enough to stifle LSU's run game? Because my worry is that, I don't know if LSU is going to just, run all over Clemson.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so, but hey, look, this is all ran all over Clemson last year. So this is
ran all over Clemson.
This is me projecting right now. But can you completely dominate the way that you would expect on paper if you have a first round pick at defensive tackle and another potential second, third round pick at defensive tackle and Peter Woods and DeMonte Capor? Are you going to win those battles decisively enough to where LSU is just they flat out give up on running the football. If you can get LSU to give up on running the football, I think that's ideal.
Yes.
If they're getting 3.5, 4 yards a pop, that's not crazy, but that keeps them on schedule. It forces you to have to respect it. It makes things a lot more difficult as a defensive coordinator than when you feel your guys are going to win their matchups one-on-one up front, and they're not going to have much of a running game to speak of, and they're going to be behind the chains more often than not. You're going to get more second, third, and longs. Like all of those things, kind of, especially over the course of a 60-minute ball game, those things add up in terms of those drive opportunities. So like that is my concern. I think because we have the scars from last year. It's still in our head. We are extremely, high on the talent of this defensive line, but the quality of play last year did not always show it. Yeah. Yes, Peter Woods, he's slimmed down. He's back at his original position. DeMonte Capehart is healthy. You got in help on the edge with Will Helt, and you feel like you've developed some of the depth behind him and TJ Parker. But we still got to see it, man. We still got to see it. You got to win. You got to win your one-on-ones.
Yeah.
And you got to dominate them.
And you mentioned that little semblance of a running game for LSU. If they are able to establish that, things get a whole lot easier for Garrett Nussmeier and the LSU offense, right? They're able to hit those play actions. They're able to allow those receivers to run and get open because Clemson can no longer, affect them in that way. So they can't make them one-dimensional, right? And just pin their ears back and come after Garrett Nussmeier because they got to be worried about the run. So it's definitely, in my opinion, the biggest question mark heading into this game is the LSU offensive line versus the Clemson defensive line. I'm really, I'm excited to finally see this defense out on the field under the tutelage of Tom Allen, right? We've heard the mantra all offseason about we want to be the best tackling team in the country. They're making a point that they want to stop the run this year. And, they're saying all the right things, right? But there ain't no ramp-up game in week 1 for Clemson to kind of get the kinks worked out, right? You're rolling into a big top 10 matchup week 1 at home, and you need to win, right? So we're going to find out really early, I think, if Clemson's run defense is any better, because I do think LSU is going to try to challenge them. I do think they're going to try to run the ball and establish it because that is going to make their night significantly easier on offense if they can establish the run. And I think that'll probably be their game plan going in, to try to establish the run early and then use that to make Garrett Nussmeier's night a little bit easier in the Valley. So that's kind of two opposing big-time things going up at once, but it's going to be fun to watch. But there's certainly question marks on both sides of the ball, both on LSU with their offensive line and then Clemson. Have they rectified the defense? Are they better at stopping the run? Because last year that was one of the worst run defenses in a long time that Clemson's put on the field. But with that said, those guys are coming in with a certain chip on their shoulder this year because they know last year wasn't to the standard. They know that they didn't play up to their ability last year, and they fell short of what the standard of defense is at Clemson. So you could always play into that and be like, well, they're going to come out motivated and ready to prove a point, and that very well may be the case.
Yeah, absolutely. This is, like I said, this is the biggest. This group has the most to prove, I think, in this football game.
Absolutely.
If you don't go out and win the matchups you should, it's not it's not the nail in the coffin for your season or anything like that. But it is something where you're like, okay, we might not be as good as the media thinks we are.
Yeah, and you go out and lose this game, and it will significantly change the atmosphere around this team, at least from a fan media kind of perspective. Internally, whatever. That's them. That's the coaches. They will think what they will internally, and I'm sure they will be just fine. But from a fan standpoint and a media standpoint, the atmosphere will change in a quick way if you let LSU come into Death Valley and beat you. Let's talk a little bit about Clemson's secondary, right? I mentioned that we feel pretty good about the corners. The safeties, we got a lot of guys with a little bit of experience, but I mentioned RJ Mickens walking out of the door and him kind of being the quarterback of your backfield last year, right? Like he was that like player on the field, but he was also a coach on the field because he had been there for so long and just knew so much football and such a high IQ guy. When they're going up against these LSU, wide receivers, these new guys that they brought in, they got some explosive guys. They're looking to be more explosive this season in the passing game. What do you feel like is that sort of matchup, and how do you feel like these LSU wide receivers and these Clemson DBs match up against each other?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, you mentioned the safety room. I mean, I'm keeping my eye on it. I mean, they've gotten really, really strong reviews out of camp. They feel like they have a lot of guys that will play and that can play at a high level. And I do really like the talent in this room. Between Ricardo Jones, between Ronan Hannafin. Obviously you still have Kylan Griffin in the room. You have Khalil Barnes. Like they feel good about the pieces they have to work with. It's just we haven't seen a lot of it. With these guys, limited experience, and that is my thing. You mentioned RJ Mickens and what he meant to this defense. Obviously, I'm leader of the RJ Mickens fan club. Like I'll tell you, like one of the more underrated players to come through here. And I think the NFL is validating that. It seems very likely he's going to make the 53-man roster for the Chargers. He was a really, really good player in the preseason. Like that's a guy that he was an underrated gem that you were able to have for multiple seasons. That's just gone. He's gone. And so, now you're kind of in a situation where, can you get that level of play last year where I think the secondary largely was pretty good last year. I mean, when you think about it, I saw a stat today in Clemson's 4 losses, they only gave up 3 passing touchdowns last year. 3. And 2 of them were in the first game to Carson Beck. So, I think that kind of puts things into perspective. Like they didn't get beat a ton. Some quarterbacks had better games than others, but they largely held up very well. So, can you keep that level of consistency? When you have, Avion Terrell in his money year and Ashton Hampton as a true sophomore looking to build on his phenomenal freshman season. Can you get that? Those guys get that help on the back end? You have the returning of Jaden Lucas, and of course Shelton Lewis is back from injury. You have guys that can. You have a lot of pieces that you feel good about. Brandon Strozier and Corian Gibson are going to be guys that are going to be stepping into bigger roles this year. You feel good about the state of the cornerback room. So now the question is, can you get that same level of play from the safeties? And when it comes to this LSU offense and these LSU skill players. Finishing tackles, first of all. I mean, you've got a lot of big physical DBs. They don't have a lot of big physical receivers. You do the math, it's simple physics. If you're coming down and making a tackle and you with more force than the receiver is coming at you, you should win that battle. But if you're not, that's where we have. I mean, that's where we have issues, and that was one thing that we saw last year from this defense in general was failing to finish tackles, and that's what cost you in multiple games last year. Can you do that with these shifty LSU receivers that have elite speed?
Yeah,
that's I think that's my question, and will the communication, especially on the back end, be to the point where you're not busting coverages? Because if you do, it's 6. It's going to be 6.
And that's kind of the piece I was referring to when I mentioned RJ Mickens. Is he was the guy directing traffic back there last year and making sure that everything was covered in the proper way, right? Rolling in these safeties that do have some experience and that we're really excited to see play. You get your eyes looking in the wrong place, you get your eyes stuck in the backfield, and suddenly a dude's banging his head off the goalpost. Because you weren't paying attention to what you were supposed to pay attention to. And these LSU wide receivers, as you mentioned, with their speed, it wouldn't take very much, they get a step on you and they're gone. So it's going to be an interesting matchup to watch on Saturday. And I definitely think, we'll get to score predictions and all that stuff later. And we're not going to give it right now, but, LSU is going to get their licks in this game. This offense is, I think they're too good not to, right? And we do have some questions on defense. They will get their licks. It will be about how this defense responds. I think there will be explosive plays in this game. And they're going to have to respond.
Absolutely. You got to be able to kind of get off the mat. That's definitely a good point, because the first big play, you can't let it, because it's going to happen at some point. You want to limit them as much as possible, but right. I don't think LSU is going to dink and dunk you for 14 play drives. I don't think that's going to be their MO. They're going to want to hit big plays, especially considering what you have up front, and they are going to respect the talent you have up front. So I think that's ultimately like the biggest question is has the mentality, has the culture really shifted under this new defensive staff? Because if not, then we're going to see a lot of what we saw last year, and that very well might get you beat if the offense can't keep up. That's just the reality. Absolutely.
Yeah. So big matchup between this LSU offense and this Clemson Tiger defense. They're going to be ready. Clemson's going to be ready. And it is going to be, I think, a very close and an epic game in the Valley. I can't wait to watch it. All right, guys, if you did not know, we have just launched merch for the Voice of College Football, specifically the Clemson page. You see it right there on the screen. Just head over to the website. I'm going to put it in the comment section here. Go check out the merch. All Voice of College Football Clemson merch. We got hats on there. You see the camo hat, the black hat. Got purple shirts, come in a bunch of different colors, gray, orange, black. Got some crew neck sweaters, some polos. Another T-shirt right there. And then some mugs and some tumblers and some koozies, okay? So go check it out. And get yourself some Clemson at the Voice of College Football merch, and proudly support me and your boy Jordan Bowman here and all the work we do here on Clemson at the Voice of College Football. Your help with that would be greatly appreciated. It helps support the show here. It helps rep the show. And then you get something that you can wear and use and all that kind of stuff, instead of just hitting a super chat or something like that. You actually get something and you're supporting the show in the same place. So, check that out. Got a bunch of new designs, and we will have more dropping as the season goes on. If you guys got a design that you would like to see, let us know, and we'll try to get that. We'll try to get that happening for you guys. If you got something that me and Jordan say all the time that you want to see on a T-shirt or something related to the show, bring your ideas in the comment section, and we'll try to get that out there for you guys, so you guys have the merch that you want. All right, Jordan, let's go ahead and turn the page. We just got finished talking about the LSU offense versus the Clemson defense. Now we're going to flip it around, right? Talk about the Clemson offense versus this LSU defense. The Clemson offense returns a ton. One of the reasons that Clemson is the number one in the country in returning production is all the guys that they got to come back on offense. You get Antonio Williams to come back. You get Cade Klubnik to come back. You just got, a ton of production coming back. TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco, who were explosive last year, burst onto the scene as freshmen. We expect them to take another step in their sophomore season and be really explosive in year number 2. Going up against this LSU defense that, they're still trying to last year they were not up to the LSU standard. Let's just be honest, right? They did not play to the standard of which LSU fans expect them to play, much like that Clemson defense from last year. But they got a good defensive coordinator. They seem to be churning in the right direction. They add some pieces through the transfer portal. What do you see? What is the matchup that you're paying attention to the most when you think about Clemson's offense versus LSU's defense?
Yeah, this is a group that I think we have the least questions about in terms of. I think you know what you're going to get out of Cade Klubnik. I think you know what you're going to get out of the receivers.
Yep.
You have a really good offensive line that's going to take another step this year. But do you have – I mean, really the question is just what does the running back situation look like? But, me personally, I'd rather have the returning offensive line that's played a lot of snaps together and green running backs than the other way around. I feel comfortable with where Clemson's offense is. My question in this matchup, of course, falls with, what does LSU's defense kind of manifest itself as? They've kind of been on the steady upward trajectory. I think, a couple of years ago, when Jaden Daniels was quarterback, I mean, those defenses were putrid. When Matt House was the defensive coordinator, I think Blake Baker in year one did a lot to kind of rectify some of the deficiencies they had on defense. It wasn't perfect. They weren't, I wouldn't say they were great last year by any means, but they were certainly much better than they've been in recent years. And I think they've done a lot in the transfer portal to kind of upgrade the talent to go along with some of the pieces that they already have. I think this LSU defense, I think they could be sneakily good this year. I don't know how good they'll be in week one with all of these new faces. But this is a matchup that I'm really excited to watch because there are a lot of pieces that, could end up being really good for them. And we just don't truly know. I think the position group on this defense that I feel the most confident about they're going to be good is that defensive front. I think this is the best defensive line LSU's had in quite some time, honestly. They've haven't been great by any means in recent years, but I think they are much more talented in that group than they've been in some time. I think it starts with Dominic McKinley, a guy that I think really burst on the scene last season, and I think they did a lot to kind of get some pieces around him. They lose Braden Swinson to the NFL. Their leading sack guy, but I think they retooled and that they have some guys that they feel really, really confident about and that have some real potential. So, as much as we say that, Clemson's offensive line is, they're really experienced and all that, they still have something to prove in this game too.
Absolutely.
Because this LSU defensive front is good. Very
Yeah.
good. I think I wouldn't say, I think they're probably a top 10 to 15 defensive line in the country.
And their linebacker core is ridiculous.
And I was just getting to that. They have a really, really talented linebackers as well. This LSU front seven, I think, is going to be a big test for Clemson out the gate. It's good to have the experience you have coming back, but again, they still got to play and they still got to win those matchups. Off the edge, they are really, really excited about Gabe Relaford. He's been kind of the star of the offseason in a lot of respects. They brought in some transfer guys to kind of maybe potentially beat him out.
Yep.
They didn't, and so it looks like he's penciled in to start. They brought in Jack Pyburn from Florida, kind of a run stopping defensive end, which I think they certainly needed last year. They were not, as much as we rail about Clemson's run defense last year, LSU's wasn't much better.
Yep.
So they brought in him to kind of change kind of the outlook off the edge and get some more run stopping ability. And then they also brought in big Bernard Gooden from the USF, a guy that was one of the better G5 defensive linemen in the country. So they've done a lot to kind of retool this defensive line, and I think Clemson's going to have their hands full there.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Again, Yeah, no breaking news here, right? It starts in the trenches with the biggest matchups in college football. That's across the board in every game, but especially this game, of course. It's our offensive line. I feel good about where they were. And I think last year, if you're thinking back as a Clemson fan, we were pleasantly surprised with the offensive line last year. I don't think any Clemson fan had them making as much improvements as they did last year. And they were far from perfect. They still got a lot of work to do, but year one under Matt Luke was a massive success for this offensive line. I think year two, they progress even further. We got some dudes along this offensive line. We got some veterans across the offensive line, and Lithicum and Lay and Blake Miller, and then you got some of your Colin Sadler, and then you got some of your Walker Parks. We don't know if he's going to play, but then you got some of your younger guys rotating in, right? You got Harris Sewell, you got Elijah Thurman. Those guys are going to look to get a lot of snaps this season, I think. So I think you're in a pretty good way, but the challenge could not be bigger for this Clemson Tigers defense than it is, or for this Clemson Tiger offensive line than it is in week one, right? This front seven is no joke. I mentioned those linebackers. Those linebackers are ridiculous. So they are going to be challenged by this front seven. And for a team that did not run the ball basically at all down the stretch last year, one, because our RB1 was, completely toast. His shoulder was done, and he just couldn't go anymore. But that's an area of improvement for this offensive line. They got to do better, right? And I look for them to take a step forward, but the challenge in week one is going to be it's going to be a tall order. And then you shift to the running back situation, right? Talk about the Clemson running back situation. We feel really good about Adam Randall, right? We feel really good about Eazy-E. We feel really good about Gideon Davison. But how do those guys look in blitz pickup, right? Because LSU is going to challenge them. They're not just going to let Cade Klubnik sit back there and pick them apart. They're going to try to pressure him. And they weren't particularly good at pressuring the quarterback last year. So I think it's something that this defense is going to try, this LSU defense is going to try to rectify in 2025, because I think they're going to try to rush the passer and really try to affect Cade Klubnik and get him to make some bad decisions and rush some decisions, much like Clemson's defense is going to try to do to Garrett Nussmeier in this game. So these game plans kind of mirror themselves, and the two sides that we're kind of breaking down kind of mirror themselves. But definitely a big challenge for the offensive line. Also a big challenge in pass pro for them running backs that don't have a ton of game experience. Adam Randall just moved to running back, right? The other guys behind him, although they're super talented, they're young and they don't have much experience. So that's also a place to kind of keep your eye on when you're watching this game.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, you're certainly going to see, LSU send pressure. As good as they feel about that defensive line. I mean, Blake Baker, he's an aggressive play caller. He's going to want to. I mean, he was like that at Missouri. He was like that at Miami before that. That's just his MO. He's going to take chances. Maybe it means they get burned a couple of times, but he's one of those defensive coordinators that's about trying to generate tackles for loss and get teams behind the chains. So that's one thing that you're gonna have to be prepared for. And they have some really good linebackers, as I mentioned. Whit Weeks is one of the better linebackers in the country. His brother is starting along with him. I think the biggest kind of question mark in hinge point on whether or not LSU's defense, especially their front seven, has really taken that next step is they bring back Harold Perkins at star. He's been a guy that's had a really, really up and down career to this point. Came in as a true freshman on the scene and kind of, he was a dude. He had a really, really strong freshman year. Yeah. But through defensive coordinator changes and position changes and injury last year, coming off a torn ACL, he hasn't had the career that a lot of people expected him to have. So now, I mean, he's back at star position, similar to his role when he was a freshman. And so, my question is, like, has he really, taken that next step in his game? And has he evolved into the 5-star that LSU thought they were getting coming out of high school? Because if they do, I think that the color, not the color, the outlook of this room is even higher. I think it raises the ceiling that much more. So my question is, with a guy that is kind of a tweener in terms of is he an outside backer? Is he gonna should he have a hand in the dirt?
Right.
He doesn't really have much of a position. Have they kind of figured out his role, and will he be able to perform that to the degree that I think LSU is going to need him to really take that next step as a defense. So yeah, I mean, Harold Perkins, that's my guy that I'm keeping a really close eye on, wearing number 7 this year, which is, if you're familiar with LSU's tradition,
that's a big deal.
It's a very sacred number. They've had some really great players wear that number over the years. So, is he going to play like it? He had it last year, and he didn't. Some of that, and of course, tearing his ACL didn't help. But even when he did play, did not play particularly well. So,
was not the freshman version of himself for sure. So we'll see if he can get that ship right, and if he can, that could spell some trouble for the Tigers in this game, because he you look back to his freshman tape, he was an absolute dog, and he can wreak some havoc. So definitely a player to watch there, and then kind of an X factor or a contributing factor to Clemson's success in this game, I think, is going to be Cade Klubnik's legs, right? And I'm not saying he's got to go out there and run the ball 10 or 15 times or anything of that stretch, right? But he's going to have to pick his spots, right? He's going to be pressured. You mentioned that they're going to be aggressive. They're going to come after him. So he's going to have to pick his spots when he escapes the pocket, keeps his eyes downfield, hits a pass, or realizes it's a busted play and go get some positive yards, right? Something that he has gotten much more comfortable with last season. And he's got to take that next step this season, right? Of just knowing when to pull that ball down, take off, and get a couple yards. And, instead of being, second and, 14, you're second and 7, right? Much more conducive for getting consistent drives down the field. And, just talking about this Clemson offense in general, this was an offense, as good as they were at times last year, went for several stretches in multiple games where it was a lot of punting, right? They just stalled out over and over again, right? So, you can't do that against this LSU team, right? You're going to have to put drives together over and over again. And I look for them to take the next step. I'm excited to see Cade Klubnik. I know he's taken another step this year, and I can't wait to see what the 2025 version of him, outside all the Heisman talk and all that stuff, I don't really care about that. I care about winning games. And when you hear Cade Klubnik talk, that's exactly what he says, right? He's like, that's great. But the metric that I care about is winning games. If I throw for, 450 yards and we lose, did it really matter? So I like that perspective from the leader of your team, the leader of your offense. So I'm excited. I think his legs will certainly need to be a factor in this game to keep Clemson on schedule at times in this game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's a part of the Garrett Riley offense at this point. And with Cade, I mean, he's demonstrated last year that, his legs can be a difference maker. They can be a great equalizer when you don't have a run game. So, I think it's been the most underrated part of his game, because they don't, you just don't hear people talk about it. But, so many big plays last year with his legs, and obviously the 7 rushing touchdowns, point to that in some big spots too. So, I think that's certainly going to play a huge factor. Shifting to the back end of this LSU defense, this is the group that looks the most different than it did last season. They certainly brought in a ton of help at corner and at safety. And, this is the group that I think if LSU is going to win this football game, that group is going to have to gel pretty fast. they return, a couple of guys that have played significant snaps. Ashton Stamps, wrong cornerback named Ashton. Jordan Gilbert. Guys that played a decent bit last year did not grade out particularly well. That LSU pass defense, it certainly didn't grade out great last year. But they bring in Tamarcus Cooley from NC State. They brought in Mansour Delane from Virginia Tech. And those two guys are expected to start. When it comes to Ashton Stamps and Mansour Delane, the presumed two cornerback duo, the cornerback duo for this team. My question is Ashton Stamps was not great in coverage last year, and Mansour Delane is a guy that we've seen play well at times in his career. A couple seasons ago at Virginia Tech, he was one of the better corners in the ACC. Last year, he gave up 7 touchdowns in coverage. So, I don't think that group has kind of solidified yet. They brought in AJ Halsey at safety from Louisville. I think he's a thumper. He's a guy that is going to be one of the best players, probably one of the best players on the defense. I'm pretty high on him. He's violent. He's a guy that plays downhill with a lot of aggression. I think he kind of brings a different energy to that defensive back room that I don't think LSU has had in quite some time. So I'm excited to see how he plays. Of course, they have the young freshman DJ Pickett, who 6'5", playing corner. But he's a guy that you can see play a lot of different positions throughout his career just because of how athletic he is. But again, they have the pieces. This is a very talented defense overall, but it's how does this group gel? And when we're talking about the secondary, I think it's the most important that those guys are on the same page early, because if they're not, Clemson's going to hit explosive plays.
Absolutely.
They're going to, with the Clemson's receivers, I feel pretty confident with that they're going to be able to hit big plays if that group is not has not gelled fast in this game.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Look, when you're retooling, especially an entire position group, essentially, as you just listed all the players that they brought in and how different this back end of the LSU defense looks this year, gelling is important, right? So how much have they done? How much cohesiveness does the back end of that defense have in week 1? Because they are going against some dudes at wide receiver. And yeah, I'm a Clemson fan, and obviously but at the end of the day, I mean, Clemson could essentially roll 6 deep at wide receiver right now. They are extremely deep at the wide receiver position. They are going to challenge this LSU secondary in a big way. Clemson wants to be explosive, and they are going to try to be very explosive in this game. So this LSU secondary, although it's retooled and you brought in a ton of talent, they really have to gel together. There's got to be a guy, an air traffic controller back there, if you will, making sure all the routes are being covered in the proper way, because if not, any of these guys can get behind you and hurt you in a big way. And you can list them all off, Brian Wesco, all the way down, right? You can list all the wide receivers, TJ Moore, Antonio Williams. Those are the 3 guys that are going to run out there first. But like I said, Clemson can rotate in 6 deep. That's going to be a battle to watch and see how they are able to corral these Clemson wide receivers.
Yeah, absolutely. Did I say that AJ Halsey was from Louisville? I don't know why I had Louisville in my head. He's from Houston, so I wanted to correct that before an LSU fan gets mad at me.
One of those teams with red in their color.
One of those. That's probably what it was. Because hey, leave me alone.
There's only about 500 million college football teams that their primary color is red.
When you have so many transfers, I got to keep all these names and where they're from in my head.
We only got to remember 3 for Clemson. Yeah. I can't imagine the LSU commentators. They got to remember all those transfers and where they came from.
They get a whole sheet of.
Yeah, you got to have a spreadsheet with all right, this guy came from here. All right, cool.
They they make sure the announcers are prepared, and that's why they rarely make mistakes.
That's right. That's right.
When they're talking about that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, like that's going to be the matchup to kind of watch. Beyond the line of scrimmage game, of course, I'm just interested to see where that secondary is with so many new faces and guys that have played good at different points in their career, but haven't always put it together. And so if Clemson's offensive line holds up their pass protection, and and that LSU secondary is not where it needs to be, definitely expect them to hit explosive plays. It's just I feel really good about this room. I think every single receiver you have has deep, a big play potential, and that's I think that's really exciting. And it's we've talked about it all offseason how different of a skill set each one of them has. With Antonio Williams, obviously the route running, the reliable hands, but has the ball tracking skills is one of the better, one of the best at that from a Clemson receiver that I can remember in recent times. Bryant Wesco, obviously the blazing speed, one of the fastest receivers in the country. He's going to make he's going to make guys pay if he gets behind you. And I think he's developed and gotten stronger, over this offseason, and you feel really good about where he is from a physical standpoint. And of course, TJ Moore and how strong he finished the season last year. I think he's only got, I think the potential is limitless for him. And then obviously I feel really good about the three guys that you'll be rotating in with him. Tyler Brown coming back from injury. Obviously, we know what he was as a true freshman. He's going to make big, I think he's a guy that we haven't talked about. Well, I think the media hasn't talked about enough, but I think people just kind of know how good he actually was.
He's going to remind people.
Yeah.
Tyler Brown is definitely going to remind me. I mean, what the coaches have said about him, what the other players have said about him, coming out of fall camp. Tyler Brown I bet he cannot wait for Saturday for him to finally get on the field and be healthy again and be able to do his thing.
Yeah, 100%. And, I think he's going to remind a lot of people of how good he was. And obviously Tristan Smith, from the transfer portal, a guy that, gives you that big, a big pass catching target that's going to make 50-50 balls and make big contested catches. He has that big playability in him, the length, the catch radius. He's not like Mike Williams, but he has that kind of skill set. And then of course Cole Turner, guy that Dabo went out of his way to mention during his press conference. Big play potential every time he's on the field. One of the fastest, might be the fastest player on the team. But has I made this comparison last night, and I think it fits so perfectly for Cole Turner and what he is. He's like the Mac McClung of wide receivers. Like, because he's white, but also because he can jump out of the gym,
right?
And he's really fast. He's not. I don't see Cole Turner as a high level NFL draft prospect, but he's a very good wide receiver, and extremely good athlete, which I think even some people in the fan base don't give him enough credit for. Even though you watch him make these big, crazy, he's leaping 6 feet in the air, these incredible contested catches, and you're like, wow. I mean, I would not expect him to do that. Just looking at that's the kind of player that I think you'll see. And you don't need him to be like a high volume target guy. You don't need him to have, 6 catches for 120 yards every game. But if he can give you an explosive or a play or two every single game, I mean, that's like on average, I think that's more than, that's more than good enough for what you have in the rest of the room. And I think you're in good shape. So, I'm a huge Cole Turner guy, so maybe some fans are probably like, oh, you're glazing, you're doing too much. But I really think he has a role in this offense, especially when you also consider what he can be as a gadget type player. You give him the ball on sweeps and end arounds and reverses, and he's going to make plays with the ball in his hands, because that's
Absolutely.
just he's an athlete, man. He's a really good athlete. So again, this wide receiver room is the most complete that Clemson has been in quite some time. I see someone say sneaky athletic, but it's not sneaky athletic. He's just athletic. Like it's not one of those. Oh man, he's really athletic for a white dude. No, he's just really athletic.
Yeah.
And so he's a first guy in the gym, last one out, plays the game the right way, all the cliches. That's not what he is. He's not he's not what they said about Hunter Renfrow. Like he is a legit high level athlete.
He's explosive.
He's very explosive.
Yeah. So
it's the type of guy you'd let date your daughter.
Oh, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, this show's gone off the rails, but y'all get what I'm trying to say.
Hey, the chat section is off the rails already. We ain't even done with the show yet.
But no, all right. That's how I feel about the wide receiver room. I think you are in. I think they're going to make plays this year, and you're in a really good spot with the guy you have throwing them the football.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Big matchup: Clemson's offense versus LSU's defense. I got a lot of faith in this offense, Jordan, and I cannot wait to see the product they put out on the field this year. I think they're going to be explosive. I'm excited to see Adam Randall. I hope he stays healthy. That's the one drawback, I think, for Adam Randall is his injury history. I just hope he can stay healthy at a much more physical position. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Before we move on, one last thing before you move on, how much do we expect the tight ends to get involved? Because we feel, we feel really good about this tight end room, but obviously, longtime starter and Jake Briningstool gone off to the league. I think you're in a really healthy spot, and you saw Olsen Pat Henry really flash last year. I think he proved to be a more well-rounded tight end in a lot of respects than Jake Briningstool was, and I think he's only got more room to grow as he's tight end one. As it stands right now, and obviously Christian Beneker coming, a guy that I think is, has the highest potential in the room, coming off a redshirt season. They feel really strong about his progress, and I think you're going to see both of them at different points in this game on Saturday. Like, how involved do you think those guys are going to be, though?
I think the tight ends will be pretty involved on Saturday. I think they'll be, very involved, and this is not a shot at Jake Briningstool at all, so I don't want anybody on here to take it the wrong way, like I'm saying anything bad about Jake Briningstool. He was a really good tight end for the Clemson Tigers. He had his limitations, but he was a really good tight end. He was a mixed match nightmare, right? Like he gave defenses trouble because of his size and his length, right? But to be completely honest, I think our tight end room is upgraded this year. I really do. I love what we saw, the growth that we saw out of OPH last year. He's grown so much since he's been at Clemson, right? His development as a passer, he's a physical guy. He can do inline blocking. He's kind of a really good package, excuse me, as at the tight end position. But kind of that X factor, if you will, at the tight end position heading into this season. Christian Beneker, man, I feel like his role will not be as big as in game one as it is towards the end of the season. Like, I think he's a guy, much like Gideon Davison, whose role is going to grow as the season goes on. And that's not a shot at OPH at all. Love the guy. He's going to be a very, very good tight end. But Christian Beneker, I think, can be special. And I think his role will grow. I'm excited about those two guys. I think they are going to be a heck of a 1-2 punch at the tight end position. They're both going to get a lot of burn this season, and I can't wait to see. And, like I said before, I think we upgraded at tight end. I think our tight end room is better this year than it was last year.
Yeah, and I think just from the sheer fact that you have those guys in a more ready spot to play than they were last year. Olsen Pat Henry, he got in and he worked extremely hard, because that's a guy that did not come in as a guy known for his blocking. I mean, he was much more of a receiver type of tight end out of high school. But then, you saw him get on the field. He worked on his body, and, he did all the little things. And he's like, basically forced the coaches to put him on the field, because he was too good. That you had to play him at different points. And now, as he's stepping into that role, as tight end one, now I think you're going to see that work ethic, that, progression even more so. And then, of course, Christian Beneker, I can't talk enough about how good I feel about that kid and what he's going to be for Clemson. I think he could potentially leave as one of the best, if he does reach his potential that Clemson's ever had. Yeah. And we didn't even mention a guy that's been in the program a long time, and Josh Sapp, who gives you almost a receiver-like quality. You're not really going to see him inline blocking a ton, but I think he's a guy that you can get him in mismatches, and he's a guy that has a different versatility in this room as well. So and he could give you some big plays because he is a really good athlete. He can go up and make some contested catches, and we've seen that at different points in his career. I think this is a complete room. It gives you an opportunity. With Logan Brooking coming in, I think the future of the tight end position is really bright at Clemson, and I think you're going to see that, throughout the course of the season. So, in this game, I think you'll definitely see mostly Olsen Pat Henry, but I think you'll see some sprinkles of Christian Beneker, and if they can get him some opportunities to make some plays, I think he can do it. He's not many tight ends that kind of look and move like him at that size.
He's different, man. He's a freak. So it's going to be exciting to see his opportunities grow as the season goes. But like you say, OPH is definitely tight end one right now. And you love a guy like that. He noticed a weakness in his game, and he worked and worked and worked. And now he is, the way he's developed as a blocker and as a passer, both. He's kind of that total package tight end right now, I feel. And certainly an upgrade this year at the tight end position with all the development and all the work that he's put in. So I think the tight end room's in a really good place this year. And I think it's going to be one of the strengths for this Clemson Tiger defense. And Garrett Riley likes to use the tight ends. So he's got some weapons there. And it's much easier when you got some dudes out wide too. So you get those tight ends in the mix, and it's just it's a schematic nightmare for the defense. So I'm excited to see how much they get used in week one, but I think they'll definitely get some significant touches in week one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. That was our long-winded, talk about the offense, the Clemson offense versus the defense. Kind of to transition, do we want to hit another? Do we have another ad read to hit?
Yeah, I can hit one.
Okay. Before we transition, we're going to hit an ad read.
All right, guys, if you did not know, the college football season is upon us, and we just launched this past offseason the Voice of College Football website. That's right. We got a Voice of College Football website, your one-stop shop for everything Voice of College Football. It's got our live show schedules off there to the left. There's articles on there. It's got all the channels, all the hosts down there. If you want to read about us, forums, all sorts of stuff that you can go over there and explore. So go over there, make an account, check out the Voice of College Football webpage, and let us know what you think of it. Tell them that the guys over on the Clemson channel sent you. All right, guys, we've talked about the LSU offense versus the Clemson defense. We've talked about the Clemson offense versus the LSU defense. We've talked about all the matchups and all the things that you could possibly think of that are going to go into winning or losing this game. But the time comes where you got to list some keys to the game, right? You got to talk about, if LSU wins, what? What does it look like? If Clemson wins, what does it look like? Jordan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Clemson, if they win this football game, I think it's pretty straightforward. You won the line of scrimmage on both sides. I mean, but I think offensively, I think you had a balanced attack. You were able to hit explosive plays. LSU's defense isn't what I think it'll be at the end of the season in week one, and you put up enough points despite LSU's athleticism and what the significant challenges that they bring. I think you'll be in a better spot, and I think that's how you put up points. And obviously, I think it helps a ton if Adam Randall is really productive on the ground. I mean, I do think he presents a lot of different challenges, with his unique, body type and build at running back. So, if Clemson wins this game, I think the offensive line, generates enough push in the run game, and maybe LSU starts to have to cheat guys up closer to the line of scrimmage. You hit big plays. Kind of the keys and what every offensive coordinator probably ideally wants in a game. I think that's how the game plays out if Clemson wins. And defensively, I think you win your matchups. You force LSU to be one-dimensional up front, and force Garrett Nussmeier, as good as he is, to have to pass them back into points. And I think it's a lot easier to call defense when you don't really have to respect their run game. So if Clemson wins the game, I think that's what it looks like. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. It's obviously it's about the offensive and defensive lines, right? It's the line of scrimmage. That's where this game is going to be won, regardless of what side you're on. But turning the page to LSU, Jordan, LSU wins the game. What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, for LSU, they win the game. I think they run the football. I think that's the biggest thing. I think if LSU can run the football in this game, if you told me after the game, and I didn't I didn't watch it, and I was in a coma or something, and I wake up and LSU has, I don't know, 140, 150 rushing yards.
Yep.
I'd probably guess they won the football game. Just being honest.
Yeah.
I don't think they need to have like a dominant rushing performance and rush for like 200 plus. But if they're productive on the ground, I think that spells trouble for you.
Absolutely.
I think that spells a lot of trouble for you, because now
I agree.
The one matchup that you felt like you should win up front, you don't. Now I think everything's off the table, or on the table as far as result. When you get to that point, and Garrett Nussmeier, he is an extremely talented quarterback. He makes NFL throws every game. When you watch his tape, so you compound that. That's bad, and that's where you get a scenario where LSU puts up 30, 35 plus in this game, and we're asking the same questions we were last year about this defense.
Yeah,
that's the reality. And then on the other side of the ball, the offensive line doesn't hold up. I think that's the biggest thing. LSU gets a ton of pressure, and the secondary doesn't have to. Because they're getting a ton of pressure, the secondary doesn't have as much pressure to play as well, and you lose I think that's what that looks like. And obviously there's in betweens on both sides of the ball as far as that result, and that's where you get, and that's kind of what I expect. I think something in between, but I think that is the ideal game script for LSU, and they win that if they are going to win that football game.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Like I said before, it starts on the line of scrimmage. I think key for one of the keys for Clemson's defense for me if they win is that safety play, right? And limiting those explosive plays from those LSU wide receivers, not getting your eyes caught in the wrong place, not letting wide receivers get behind you. Those explosive plays can be backbreaking, right? And Garrett Nussmeier can make all those throws. So that's one of the keys for me. And then another key for me for Clemson on the offensive side of the ball is their running game. Like Clemson has to establish a running game in this. They have to come out and prove that they can out physical that LSU front seven, which is a tall task, like we said before. But they have to establish that, and they got to keep K. Klubnik clean in the pocket, right? He's going to be pressured. They're going to get to him from time to time. Hopefully, he escapes the pocket, but not each and every play, down in and down out, right? Keep him clean, and I think that's how Clemson wins that game. And then the reverse, you kind of hit the points for LSU. So that's kind of our view of the game and how we see it going if either team won. So Jordan, now I think it's time for a score prediction. I think it's time that we give our actual pick to this game. But before we give our picks, I want to encourage all the fans in here, all the people in the chat section, all the people in the live chat, get your score predictions in. Let us know who you think is going to win and what the score is going to be. So just like me and Jordan are going on record, you guys can go on record as well with your score predictions. I guess I'll go first on the score prediction, Jordan. I believe this is going to be a classic game. I think it's going to be an instant classic. I think that this is going to be a very physical football game. I think there's a lot of motivation on both sides. You can make cases for both of these teams as to why they are more motivated, quote unquote, than the next team, right? You mentioned LSU's 5-game losing streak to start the season, right? Dating all the way back to the Ed Orgeron days, right? You mentioned Clemson, the 0-3 record against the SEC, our shaky record in the beginning of the season as of late, right? There's a lot of different storylines, but I think this is a very physical game. I think this is a very close game. I think it comes down to the fourth quarter. And frankly, I think it comes down to a game-winning drive. I truly do. I think it's going to be that close. I think it's going to be the team that just can, impose their will a little bit more. And my score prediction is 31-28. Clemson gets out with a win. Last second drive, walk-off. No, I'm just kidding. 31-28. Clemson beats LSU by a slim 3-point margin. Remind you, the spread on this game right now, as it currently sits before we hopped on the show, was 3.5. The over-under was 57.5 for this game.
Yeah. I've kind of gone back and forth, like knowing that this time was coming today. And, I still haven't fully decided kind of what I think this game looks like. Because honestly, there's a world where this game is sneaky defensive. Like that actually wouldn't surprise me. But then there's also a world where I think both teams just put up a ton of points. Like I think that could totally happen too. I feel like that's a cop out, but with unknowns on both sides, and unique advantages and mismatches and matchups on both sides, I think this is a game where there's a high degree of variance in terms of what the result could look like. I think Clemson wins this football game. I think the home field advantage is going to be huge. I think that's going to play a big role in this game. I mean, I don't think LSU is I don't think LSU is the final product of what I think they can be. I think this is a really good football team. And in fact, I think this is a college football playoff team. But I don't know if they're going to be that final version of themselves in week 1. Regardless, I think this is going to be a really tight football game. Like you, I think it's going to be a classic, one that we'll be talking about for a while. after the game ends. And this is, one of the best quarterback matchups, arguably the best quarterback matchup you'll see all season in college football. I'm going Clemson 34, LSU 27. And I think, like you, I think it's going to be a game where could come down to the final possession. And I think both teams are going to get their shots in. I think both offenses are too good not to put up put up points. And my biggest question, I think, on the Clemson perspective is, what does that 27 look like? Are you giving up a ton of big plays? Did they have to work for it? Were they able to run the football? All of those things, because not every score is created equal in terms of what you take from it. And I guess that's my biggest thing. But I do think Clemson's experience and continuity and having home field advantage is going to be the difference in this football game. Yeah. So Clemson 34, LSU 27, lock it in. I might feel differently tomorrow, but I'm locking this one in, and this is the one y'all can hold me to if I'm wrong. So
34-27, Jordan.
Yep.
All right. We'll see. We're going to keep track this year of who's got the closer scores in the game, just to make it I don't know, something competitive and something interesting that me and you can do with the score predictions.
Yeah, I might have to make a spreadsheet so that way we can we can do a total and see how close each one of us was from the total margin.
Yeah,
and then that can be a little competition. So
just to make it a little bit more entertaining for us doing these score predictions, because honestly, it's a guesstimate. You're just guessing on what's going to happen. Got a couple score predictions in the comments. Let's get to those real quick. Christian says 31-24 Tigers. Talking about the Clemson Tigers there, that is. Garrett Woods, 31-20 LSU. Charles Smith says LSU 45, Clemson 17.
What's up, Charles?
Hey, that's tough. That's tough right there.
That's my boy. He's trolling. He's at LSU.
Yeah. That's a large margin there. All right. Wet Sox, 38-31, Clemson. Isaac Smith, 34, LSU, 31. So, all right. 27-24, LSU. Spaceman, 24-13, LSU. David, one of our channel members, thank you so much for supporting the show on a monthly basis, David. Really do appreciate you. He said 31-24, Clemson wins. I think that is all the score predictions. So pretty even there, half and half, right? Some LSU in there, some Clemson in there. I like it. I like to see it. So that's our score prediction. I had it at 31-28. Jordan had it at 34-27, both picking the Clemson Tigers to be victorious this Saturday in Death Valley, Clemson, South Carolina.
Yeah, the real Death Valley.
The real Death Valley.
Quick question before we kind of wrap everything up. How much blowout potential do you think is in this game on either side? It's college football. Blowouts happen.
They do happen.
If either team, obviously it's more embarrassing for the home team to get blown out, but where does that fall in the realm of possibility in this game? Where the game gets away from either team?
I don't think it's probable that there's a blowout. But if there was, I think Clemson gets the better of LSU. I believe in this Clemson defense too much to think that they will get blown off their home field. Just my opinion. But with that said, I think there's a low chance of this game getting away from either team. But if it did, because of the defenses, I would lean that Clemson it got away from LSU and Clemson won big. Not just because of that, also the home atmosphere, the home crowd. I mean, this Death Valley is going to be rocking. And Brian Kelly didn't do his team any favors by trolling the Clemson fans in multiple interviews with the whole Death Valley Junior routine, and we'll let them borrow the name and all that kind of stuff. So he didn't do them any favors. These fans are going to be just absolutely insane. Jordan, you might want to bring hearing protection to the game because you might need it. So I think it's a low chance, if I'm being honest. But if I had to pick a way, if there was a blowout, I would think Clemson would get the better of LSU based off the home atmosphere. And I just believe in their defense more. I do.
Yeah. Monkey said, what do you consider a blowout? Like how many points? Yeah.
3 scores, 17.
Yeah, three scores, you could say. But not all of those are created equal. But yes, I would say, 3 scores. So it's like 17 or more is probably
17 to 21 points. I think that's a blowout.
Yeah.
Obviously
it's loosely defined and it kind of depends on how the game, because like
right.
If it was a competitive game, it's like 30 to 20 and another team's driving inside the 2 minutes to score, maybe get a chance at an onside kick, but they throw a pick six and they lose by 17. Like, would you look at that game and say, man, that was a blowout?
No, yeah, that's completely different circumstances.
Yeah, so like that was a really specific example, but those are things that happen. So like, I think that happened to like Alabama against Georgia, in the national championship a few years ago. Like, I don't consider that game a blowout, even though the score was kind of looked a little lopsided at the end.
Right.
So it kind of depends on how the game plays out, and obviously it has more to do with your eyeballs. Like, did one team just flat out look better, or was it a really competitive football game and one team just made a few more plays? Like, that's one of those things where you kind of it's subjective, but generally I'd say like 17 or more. I don't see that as a high degree of possibility on either side, but it's possible if turnovers. That obviously is the great equalizer, and if one team turns the ball over more than the other, then all bets are off. But yeah, I think we'll.
Hey, Jay's in here not doing his job this year, Jordan. You see this? He's picking Clemson. What's he doing?
Oh, shit. What are you doing, man?
What are you doing, Jay? What are we doing? We gonna start the season off like this, Jay?
All right. Can we? Did you write our score predictions in pen or pencil?
I wrote it in pen. I got a pen right here. I got no pencils. They're locked in.
We're cooked.
Jay, we got 50 people. We got 50 people in the live chat right now. I just want everybody to know, if LSU wins, it's Jay's fault. It's Jay's fault. So don't come at me and Jordan for our score predictions. It's all Jay. Okay?
Yeah.
He did it. He knows his job, and he didn't do it.
Yeah. That's tough, man.
It's tough.
Nasty work.
Appreciate you being in here, Jay.
Yeah,
all right. Back by popular demand. BYOG or Sell, one of our best segments that we added to the show last season. And it's always a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun with it in the comment section. Basically, it's a play on buy or sell, right? So those of you that are new and have not been a part of this segment before, you basically type in something that you think will or will not happen, and we decide whether we're buying it or we're selling it. But instead of buy, we do BYOG. Obviously, Dabo, Hurricane game, 2015, Notre Dame. Bring your own guts.
Yeah.
So from the chat section, from the comment section, let's hear your best BYOG or sales.
All right, we got our first one from our esteemed channel member, David Lowry. He says, BYOG or sell Randall over 100 yards on the ground and 50 yards through the air.
Ooh.
I think I'm
a sell on that.
I think I'm a sell on that. The 100 yards on the ground, if you had said the 100 yards on the ground or 50 yards through the air,
yeah,
that would be a good game on, alone on either of those fronts. But together, I don't think you're going to see Adam Randall get that volume of touches. Now, running the football, and if I had to pick one, I think it's probably more likely that he gets 100 yards on the ground than it is that he gets 50 yards through the air, just because I don't see that many targets.
Yeah, I think if it would have just been like 100 yards on the ground, I probably would have bought that. BYOG on that. But both, I got to sell on that. That's a tall task.
Yeah, that's too much. If he does, then I'm telling some crazy lies after the game.
If he's got that kind of stat line, we might be heading toward the blowout territory like we were entertaining before.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance that. Well, I think
I don't think that happens.
Jay, he says, rewriting my BYOG or sell, there are more than 3 PI calls in the game. More than 3. Well, Clemson's DBs are certainly grabby. It's how they're coached. So I could, that could happen, and the speed of LSU's receivers. Maybe you get a little handsy, maybe on a drag or something. And
are we talking about total for like both teams or just Clemson?
Probably total for both teams.
I'm going to buy on that.
I think I could buy that
because of the explosiveness of both wide receiver cores. I think you probably I think you get more than 3 PI calls in this game.
Yeah. All right. Isaac, BYOG or sell, there will be 2 turnovers in this game. Between both teams, I'll buy.
Yeah, I'll buy that. It's week one. There's always some sloppy play in week one. And, with the talent level of these 2 teams, I could absolutely see 2 turnovers.
Yeah. I mean, you've got a quarterback that threw 12 picks last year. Now, granted, some of those weren't his fault.
No.
And a quarterback in Kate Klubnik that didn't throw a ton of picks last year, but he did put the ball on the ground a good bit. He was kind of fortunate that he didn't lose more fumbles than he did last year. So, when you put all of that together, that's a recipe. There's a decent chance. I mean, and plus you've got new running backs. What if Adam Randall fumbles? What if David Eziamume fumbles? That's very well within the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Ball security is going to be important in this game. That's one of those things in week one where you really don't know what you're going to get, and there could be some sloppy. Play from that perspective. David with another one. He says, this Saturday, this is going to be the biggest. This is going to be a big game. Is this the biggest game of the year for Clemson in the regular season? Yeah, I mean, I'd say so. I mean, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, not in terms of like postseason implications. Like, I don't think it's the most important game, but I think for setting the tone for the season, I think that's a real thing. I think you need to win this game. Now, shoot, I mean, you win this game and drop a couple in conference, and you miss the ACC championship or something like that. You lose to South Carolina at the end of the season. Yeah, I mean, what you did in even if you win week 1, it doesn't matter. But I think for this team, for changing the narrative, I think for realizing what they've been talking about all offseason, what they've been building towards all offseason, and really what they've been building towards for the last 3 years, when you consider, just how long it took to get to the roster back to where we feel good, somewhat good about them potentially being a national championship contender. Like, they've been building towards this.
Yeah.
So with all the offseason hype and with all the excitement and all the change that the program has gone under, you come out flat week 1. I think that's pretty deflating.
Yeah, it would definitely be deflating. This, it's not a must-win game by any means, but it would be really, really nice to have this game from a national perspective, from a momentum perspective, and all the things that you just listed, Jordan. But Clemson season with everything would still be in front of them if they lose that game. But look, you know what the one guarantee is coming out of this game, Jordan, is one of these fan bases are going to freak out. That's the one guarantee we can stay right. Like, you could put any amount of money on that. One fan base coming out of Saturday, either LSU or Clemson, are going to have a complete meltdown Saturday night.
Even if it's a great football game and it's like it's
matter.
A game of inches, it doesn't matter.
If LSU loses, they're going to lose their mind. If Clemson loses, likewise. So the meltdown is coming. It's just what fan base partakes in that meltdown is the question.
Yeah. Monkey with BYOG yourself. Dabo gives a golden Daboism in the post game. Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
If they win.
If they win, I think he will. And to add to that, will it have something to do with Death Valley?
Yeah. Oh, I hope so.
Because he hasn't really entertained that topic. He kind of skirts around it when asked. So I could see him
doing a victory lap,
using that opportunity with the interview in the center of the field to state his Death Valley case if they win.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably, if you do, you're probably giving them bulletin board material for when you make the return trip next year. Sure. But I don't care; it's worth it.
I don't think he'll care in the moment.
Yeah, I don't think he'll care either. Spaceman, BYOG or sell, Tom Allen imposes his will on the Swamp Tigers. Well, I mean, that's kind of vague. Like, how do you mean imposes his will? Because, I mean, that can look a lot of different ways. I don't think that you're going to have a scenario where Clemson just like shut LSU down.
No, I think
they're too good for that. So, like, imposes his will. If by imposing his will, it means like, hey, you make them one-dimensional. You make them have to throw the ball, make them be behind the chains, make them convert tougher third and longs and things of that nature. And Garrett Nussmeier can make those throws. So if he makes those throws, and you just kind of tip your cap. But like, if that's what you mean by imposes his will, then yeah, I could see that. Now, if you mean imposes his will, like he just dominates LSU, like the defense just dominates LSU in all facets of the football game, like I'm not even entertaining that. I just don't think that's going to happen. That too good of a quarterback, too much skill talent, even with the questions at offensive line. I don't see a scenario where that happens. Paulie, Easy E 50 yards on the ground. I'm going to sell. I don't think you're going to see an overly dominant rushing performance from Clemson. I think you'll get enough to where they have to respect it. It's not to like where you were last year against like Texas, or where you were against Pitt, where like you had like 8 rushing yards until K Klubnik's game-winning run. Like, not that kind of game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you'll be productive enough. I don't know if Easy gets 50. I think they're going to give. I mean, I think Randall is going to get the bulk of the carries. I mean, there is a. We're not. I don't think you have a 1A, 1B type situation at running back right now, at least in the eyes of the coaches. So, I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Randall in terms of the share of rushing attempts with Cade sprinkled in there, and I think you'll see some of a little bit of Easy E potentially, maybe Gideon Davidson if they feel like they want to get him an opportunity with the football. But I think nothing much more than that. I think it'd be tough to get 50 yards unless he just breaks a big one. Which, hey, he's got big play potential. He's done it throughout spring and fall. He's had some big runs. So maybe, but I'm not. I'm going to sell on that.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Den JS, pretty sure he's an LSU fan. He says BYOG or sell Barian Brown has a touchdown and a punt return for a touchdown. That's not as crazy as, that's not as unlikely as you'd say for most players. And considering what happened the last time Clemson played Barian Brown, he actually did do that.
We don't
so,
that.
we don't have to talk about that.
I'm a sell. I don't think it's gonna happen.
I can definitely see him celebration.
I could definitely see him getting a touchdown, but
I don't
know about the punt return for touchdown.
Yeah, Clemson's punt
coverage. We might not punt it far enough for you to return it. So I don't. To be fair, it might go into the. Yeah, he'll have to field it on the sideline if he returns it
because we don't shoot. It's probably not staying in the field to play.
It's not going in bounds.
No, but I would absolutely buy. I could totally buy Barian Brown getting a touchdown.
Yeah, touchdown for sure. I think he will get a touchdown.
John Sayre says BYG or sell punting will still cause fans to lose their minds. Right now, I'm buy.
Buy.
Right now, buy. Yeah.
Buy. All three of the punters. Whoever's out there. We should set an over/under on muff punts.
Yeah. Dabo said this isn't a situation like Jonathan White's a couple years ago at kicker. I believe you're not going to go grab a punter off the street because you don't have that option. You don't have that option this year, unless there's some former Clemson punter that I don't know about that has a year of eligibility left. But I don't think. But that doesn't mean that your situation is any better. I got to see it. I got to see it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you're not punting too much in this game, but if you are.
I don't feel great about it.
This turns into a field position battle. Both defenses are playing at a high level.
I don't
even want to think about
I don't feel good about Clemson's ability to flip a field. That's for sure.
No, I don't. And that stressed me out thinking about it. We'll
be lucky to get a 40-yard punt.
Yeah. Sticking with the punter track, BYG or so, we have two different punters punt on Saturday. I'm actually going to buy that.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
I'm going to buy that.
I think at least two.
Yeah.
Maybe more. They might just run one out there for every punt, a different one. Even if we punt 3 times, they might just run out 3 different punters. Who knows?
Yeah. All right, let's do a few more. Like Mike, BYG or sell 3+ sacks for Clemson against LSU. 3, I think they can get to 3. I think with the questions, I got to see that tackle play first. I actually think they'll be pretty decent on the interior.
I think we can.
I don't trust their tackle play. Now they could surprise us, but I think you're in a much better spot at defensive end in particular, in terms of who you'll be rotating in and out. And of course, you feel really good about the guys you have starting. So they're going to be green. That's a tough ask for 2 new starters at tackle to just block TJ Parker and Will Help.
That's a tall task, man.
I don't know, man. And they're going to get creative with their, Tom Allen doesn't do a ton of, games and stunts, but he'll do it. It's on tape. And, they have guys that are athletic enough to do it.
Not only that, I mean, TJ Parker's capable of getting 3 sacks by himself.
Yeah.
But
we've seen him do it.
We've seen him do it. Yeah.
Let's see. Spaceman, BYOG or sell. Tristan Smith gets serious, snaps. I'll buy. They feel. I think you'll see. Him. How many snaps will you see? Like, I think one of the they're working on with him in terms of, obviously he's a guy that was kind of raw coming out of SEMO, but his progression has been pretty exponential. I think you'll see him. I mean, I don't know like if he's going to get the lion's share of snaps, and it could vary. But like, if I had to guess, like, this is totally just me speculating, I could see like 20 snaps.
15, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking like 15, 20.
Yeah.
And especially in the red zone, like, they're going to use him as a weapon in the red zone. Like, as soon as Clemson gets in the red zone, just look over. Tristan Smith's going to be coming in the game. Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
That's a target you want to have on the field in those type of opportunities.
You want that guy.
Not many guys that are going to be able to, out jump him and out reach him. I mean,
especially, Clemson, that's a part of their game they're trying to improve this year is their red zone scoring, right? Like scoring touchdowns in the red zone, not taking field goals. So he's going to be used as a weapon down there. So, yeah, I would say 15 to 20 snaps would be right about where he's at.
Oh, this is a good one. I like this one a lot. Jay, BYOG or sell. The longest play for Clemson comes from a backup running back. Is it a big play from the second wave of receivers like Tyler Brown, Cole Turner, Tristan Smith?
It's funny you mentioned Tyler Brown first, because as soon as I read this question, the first name that popped in my mind was Tyler Brown.
I think that's possible. I don't think that's crazy. I'm gonna sell it.
Yeah,
because I mean I think you're gonna rely on your best guy. I mean, you're gonna want to get the ball to your best guys, and
it's gonna be those first 3 getting the bulk of the opportunities.
Yeah,
but if I had to pick, if it was a backup, I'm going Tyler Brown.
Yeah, I like that question though.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Isaac, BYOG or sell. 7 or more offensive linemen play a offensive snap for Clemson. I'll buy. I mean, Dabo said it as much, and the status of Walker Parks makes that even more likely. So, I think they'll all be rotating in at basically one spot. I mean, I think you're pretty locked in at left tackle, left guard, center, and right tackle. So
the two guards will rotate.
Yeah. The guard. I think you'll see those. I think you'll see Harris Sewell and Elijah Thurman get in the game at different points. But just to give Walker, because I mean, listen, if Walker Parks was healthy, he was probably going to need a breather. I mean, that's just he's at that point in his career. He's had, we know the medical history with him, and they're going to want to make sure that he gets through the season healthy. So, there's going to be some load there was going to be some load management there anyway. So, yeah, I totally see a 7 playing. All right, let's do a couple more, then get on out of here. We hit the 2-hour mark yapping. Paulie says BYG or sell. Cade rushes for 50 plus, while any of our running backs also rush for 100 plus. Ooh. I'm going to sell. I don't think Cade. I think Cade is going to pick his spots. I think they're going to.
Yeah.
I don't know if Cade gets 50 rushing yards in this game. LSU knows that he can run the ball. They're going to be.
Yeah, you heard Brian Kelly talk about it in his interview this week. Like, we got to keep Cade in a box because he can hurt us with his legs. So I don't think they're going to try to get outside their rushing lanes. You know, they're going to try to keep him from escaping the pocket while also pressuring him.
Yeah.
But I don't think they just sell out and just go running up the field and allow Cade Klubnik to, you know, break off a 60-yard run.
Yeah. I don't think. Yeah. I think
they've just seen it happen far too many times. So.
Yeah, I think the scenario where I think it's more likely that I think it's more likely that if the running backs don't have a good game, that it's more possible that Cade reaches 50 yards than he does that, and on top of the running backs hitting 100 plus. Like,
yeah,
I would think it's more likely. Like if you told me like the running backs would struggle in this game and we wouldn't have much of a traditional run game, then I'd be like, okay, you're going to see more Cade. I think it's possible he gets to that number
because in the biggest games that's Clemson's MO. You know, they like to run the quarterback in the biggest games.
Yeah.
So especially when the running game's not going well, they use it as a way to you know, keep them on schedule. So, but I mean, if the running backs have a 100+ yard game, that probably means that, you know, LSU's got to respect the run. And the passing offense is probably doing pretty well.
Yeah. This isn't a BYOG sell, but Keith asked a good question. He said, which team will be more penalized? Yeah, that's going to be tough. I believe ACC refs will be, it'll be ACC refs.
ACC refs, yeah. I mean, one would think the away team, just due to procedural penalties, because of the noise. But that's a really good question. I don't know.
I mean, and LSU's they've got some dudes that they've got some thumpers. Like maybe somebody gets targeting. I don't know. Like that could be possible too.
David said ACC reps. That's Clemson, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, you might not be wrong, but that's going to be you on paper. Ideally you would expect Clemson to be the less penalized team, being the more experienced football team.
Yeah, and you're at home, so you should be the less penalized team.
Yeah,
right.
You would hope.
Yeah.
Now, Clemson wasn't they weren't a heavily penalized team last year. So, I mean, but sometimes those types of things fluctuate. There's not always a rhyme or reason to how often the team gets penalized. Sometimes it is just because they're undisciplined. Sometimes it's kind of unlucky. It kind of varies from team to team. All right. Last one, Isaac Smith. He says BYOG or sell. But we'll see at least 3 screen passes for the Clemson offense. That's an easy buy.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could say that for basically any team. I mean, I'll put
my whole check on that one.
Yeah, I mean, you run. I mean, the average college football team runs about 70 plays on offense.
Yeah.
At least 3 of them are going to be screen. You don't think at least 3 of them are going to be screens?
With how more than 3, I can tell you that.
It's going to be more than 3. I mean, there's screen in Garrett Riley's offense. There's built-in screens in terms of RPOs. Like, it's part of the offense. Like, I mean, screens are a part of every modern offense. So I would be surprised if you didn't see 3 screens from Clemson. I don't understand what our fan base's fascination is with screens sometimes, because
hey, they see a screen, immediately lose their mind,
and I'm like, we don't.
They start throwing stuff at the TV, the dumbest play call ever.
Yeah, and I'm like, I mean, it's frustrating when they get blown up. Like, obviously, like, you got to have guys that want to block that value blocking, but it's like it's part of every modern offense.
Yes.
You be doing it would be a dereliction of duty not to call screens at
It's
any
not
point
just
in the game.
Clemson too. Like the small, I'll call it the small sector, the fan base that freaks out about screens like week in and week out. Just go watch any other offense in college football.
Yeah,
you're going to see the same plays, like the same screen passes.
Yeah.
Go watch whoever you think has a better offense than Clemson. If you think they do, go watch them. I bet you they throw the same screen passes.
Yeah. Now, some might execute them better than
others. They go back. Yeah, maybe they're just better at them, but it's the same play.
I mean,
it's not like,
it's a part of every offense, but I don't know of a single team that doesn't run any screens. Like that's just not a thing in modern college football. But we'll leave it at that. And that was a knock on you, Isaac. Is just
no.
It made me think of it. I've seen, like, just over the years, like, people complain, like, even when Chad Morris was here, when the Tony Elliott offense, they were all, like, every fan base, like, the fans were always frustrated with screens, and I'm like, everybody runs screens, man. Anyway, we're gonna leave it at that for now. That was our inaugural BYOG or Sell segment of the 2025 college football season. Got a lot of great ones. Excited to revisit, some of them, and we'll see kind of how much of them come true, how much of our buys, we're correct, and how many of our sells, come to pass. So we'll see. But that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you, guys. It was a long show, but you covered a lot. But hey, first game of the season, like,
that's right.
We kind of had to go all out.
It's
just how it was.
It had to be a big show. It had to be a long show. We are on the heels of the 2025 season. Week 1, preview and prediction in the books for the All In show. It's been a great show, guys. Thank you to all the LSU fans that got in here. Appreciate you guys getting in here and chopping it up with us Clemson fans for a little bit. Appreciate all our regulars, all the guys that are here all the time. Appreciate our channel members, David and Arthur. Appreciate you guys for supporting the show on a monthly basis. Hit that like button if you have not already on your way out. It's free, and it really helps the channel. If you're not subscribed, if you're an LSU fan and you're here tonight, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Hang out with us for the season. We welcome all fan bases around here as we go through the college football season and talk college football. So hopefully you'll join us for that. Share the video with anybody out there that likes college football or consumes college football content. Send them our way. We would appreciate it. And with that said, guys, Week 1 preview and prediction is in the books for the 2025 season. Until next, I can't even say that. We will see you Saturday, immediately following the Clemson game. Win, lose, whatever happens, blowout, close game, heartbreaking loss, exciting win. Me and Jordan will be right here post-game live to break it all down and give you our raw reaction to the game. So come join us Saturday night, immediately following the Clemson LSU game, right here.
As close to immediately as possible.
Well, yeah. Give us, give us
cell service in Memorial Stadium it kind of sucks. Anybody that's been to a game in Clemson, they know you're. Yeah, Jordan's trying to join a stream.
Yeah,
from your
Jordan's going to the game, so we're gonna have to wait a bit after, a little bit longer than we normally would for him to go find somewhere to set up and stream the post game live. I'll be at home, so I'll set up the live and everything. We'll have it ready to go, and then when he's somewhere where he can stream, we'll pop it on. So it may be a little bit of an extended time after the game, but I assure you we will be live right here on Clemson at the Voice of College Football after the Clemson LSU game. So come join us for that. It's going to be a great time. If you're an LSU fan and y'all beat us, you can come troll us and have all your fun in the comment section. We welcome it all.
Absolutely.
Right.
And if I see some of you at the game, or if any of you recognize me, if any of you are going to the game and see me, feel free to say hi. It's always nice to meet people who watch the show. It's happened a few times. I'm not gonna say I get approached every day or anything like that, but I always enjoy those interactions. So come say what's up. We will see you guys on Saturday.
All right. See you guys Saturday. Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.